Noopept is an ampakine nootropic, and it's similar in action to the racetam class of compounds. Noopept is up to 1,000 times more potent than the original paracetam. Noopept was patented by a Russian-based pharmaceutical company in 1996. Research shows Noopept has similar effects, but it works differently than other nootropics in the racetam family. It's not considered to be a true racetam, because it doesn't have a 2-oxypyrrolidone core. Noopept does not appear in blood samples when taken as a supplement. Instead, it elevates concentrations of cyclopropylglycine, or CpG, in the brain. CpG is a dipeptide consisting of proline and glycine, and it acts as a modulator of acetylcholine transmission and the Ampa receptor function. Noopept is patented in both Russia and the US. It's sold as a prescription drug in Russia and other countries that were part of the Soviet Union, and as a supplement in the United States. Neurohackers use the Noopept to boost cognition, memory, and learning, and it improves reflexes, perception, logical thinking, and mood. Noopept increases nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, critical for neuroplasticity and long-term potentiation. Brain health gets a boost along with long-term memory. Noopept prevents the release of excess glutamate in the brain. Glutamate is the brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitter. When there's a lack of oxygen in the brain, neurons can't receive glutamate. This leads to toxic levels of glutamate within the brain cells, and this can result in neuron damage and death. Diminishing this neurotoxic overload with Noopept is a potent neuroprotection. Noopept boosts alpha and beta brainwave activity. You become calmer and more creative. It's easier to go into a flow state, and you're prone to making innovative and resourceful decisions. Researchers in Moscow found Noopept similar to paracetam in not only its nootropic effect, but also its anxiolytic activity. Noopept is a water-soluble ampakine nootropic. Ampa refers to one of the 3 glutamate receptors in the brain. Noopept can also be considered a cholinergic compound because it affects acetylcholine levels in the brain. One of the newer synthetic nootropic compounds, Noopept is known as a cognitive enhancer, and it's known for its anxiolytic or anti-anxiety effects. It's considered to be up to 1,000 times more potent than paracetam. As an ampakine nootropic, it helps to increase attention span, alertness, and it boosts all 3 levels of memory, being memory formation, retention, and recall. Ampakines tend to have a stimulant effect, but they don't produce the same stimulant side effects as Ritalin or coffee from prolonged use. Noopept and paracetam are both water-soluble, and both Noopept and paracetam are cognitive enhancers. Both have neuroprotective and anxiolytic qualities. Both are able to improve learning and memory, and both are able to repair brain damage. But Noopept has additional benefits not shared with the paracetam. First, the effective dose of Noopept compared to paracetam is 1,000 times lower. A typical dose of Noopept is 10 to 30 milligrams, while paracetam is often dosed at 3 to 4 grams. Paracetam facilitates only the early stages of the memory process. On the other hand, Noopept influences memory consolidation and retrieval. So Noopept helps you to develop the memory, to retain the memory, and then recall when you have it stored. Noopept also has additional selective anxiolytic or anti-anxiety properties. Researchers believe this is due in part to Noopept's antioxidant effect, anti-inflammatory action, and the ability to prevent the neurotoxic effects of too much calcium and glutamate. Noopept boosts brain health and function in several ways. Noopept modulates the Ampa and the Nmda receptors and acetylcholine transmission. It boosts the levels of cyclopropylglycine, or CpG, in the brain. This is a dipeptide consisting of proline and glycine, and this acts as a modulator of acetylcholine transmission, and Ampa and the Nmda receptors. When brain cells are starved of oxygen, glutamate, which is your brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitter, doesn't work efficiently with the neuroreceptors. The result can then be a toxic buildup of glutamate in the brain cells, causing neuron damage and ultimately neuron death. Noopept modulates the neuroreceptor function, keeping glutamate transmission at normal levels, protecting neurons and other brain cells from glutamate damage. Noopept has also been shown to modulate acetylcholine flow in the brain, restoring the harmony of glutamate and acetylcholine function. Not only protects the brain from damage, but it can boost cognition, memory, learning, recall, mood, and relieve anxiety. Noopept increases nerve growth factor, brain-derived neurotropic factor, and mRNA. The nerve growth factor and the brain-derived neurotropic factor are directly related to neuroplasticity. This ability to repair and even grow new brain cells can have profound implications, particularly with someone who has neurodegenerative brain damage like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, and even affecting long-term potentiation needed for long-term memory development. mRNA affects the expression of genes and intracellular communication in brain cells. This ongoing brain signaling and gene expression within the brain cells is required for healthy cognition. One study conducted in Moscow showed the long-term use of Noopept boosted nerve growth factor, brain-derived neurotropic factor, and mRNA. The animal subjects in the study showed no sign of tolerance, and long-term use of Noopept even potentiated the neurotropic effect. Glutamate is an excitatory relative of GABA. While GABA has a calming effect, glutamate stimulates. Glutamate is the most common neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. Noopept increases nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotropic factor. But glutamate can be toxic to the neurons, and too much of it in the brain can kill brain cells. Lou Gehrig's disease, for example, is caused by excess glutamate. But glutamate is a pivotal neurotransmitter in the brain. It links the brain circuits that are involved in memory, learning, and perception. Too much glutamate can kill neurons. Too little glutamate can cause problems with memory, learning, and perception. Acetylcholine levels decline. Nerve growth factor declines. Brain-derived neurotropic factor declines. All these changes can happen at any age, and they're a product of the food we eat, what we drink, the lifestyle habits, the air we breathe, and more. So Noopept can help for age-related cognitive decline, as well as a student looking to do better in school, by boosting nerve growth factor, brain-derived neurotropic factor, and acetylcholine, and by controlling the glutamate in the brain. Noopept modulates Ampa and Nmda receptors. Ampa receptors are associated with how glutamate and calcium is used in the brain. With Noopept, it's more of a neuroprotective role. The Noopept improves memory and the long-term potentiation. Similar to the Ampa receptor, the Nmda receptor is also associated with glutamate and calcium use. They work together to modulate how the neurons use the glutamate. Noopept modulates the levels of glutamate within and between the neurons. It prevents glutamate toxicity, and it influences long-term potentiation. Long-term potentiation is associated with neuroplasticity that allows long-term memories to form. There's clinical evidence that Noopept boosts communication and neuron signaling. By boosting alpha and beta brainwave activity, you become calmer and more creative. It's easier to go into a flow state, and you're prone to making innovative and resourceful decisions. Noopept produces an anxiolytic or anti-anxiety effect. It stimulates dopamine receptors D2 and D3, and acetylcholine nicotinic receptors. And Noopept also seems to modulate some serotonin receptors, all contributing to a better mood and less anxiety. Noopept has been shown in the lab to boost nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotropic factor. Nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotropic factor are both involved in neuroplasticity and the repair and the replacement of damaged brain cells, resulting in overall better brain health, memory, and cognition. Noopept is water-soluble, and it quickly enters the brain after you take it. Once in the brain, it boosts the signal transmission, and it protects the neurons. On its own, Noopept increases focus and attention for many users. Mental arithmetic and grasping difficult concepts becomes easier. Your conversational skills could increase with Noopept. Vocabulary comes easier. Being able to focus contributes to a more balanced dialogue. Users report being more outgoing, friendly, and less self-conscious. With Noopept, you might find yourself better able to deal with stressful situations and work issues that normally get you down. Once you get past the first few weeks of unpleasant memories related to post-traumatic stress disorder, you may find overwhelming emotions will subside. You could feel detached in a pleasant way from painful memories. Many users report increased pleasure when listening to music while using Noopept. For some, it takes music to a different plane. Distinguishing between instruments in soundtracks is easier. As a whole, music sounds better. Noopept affects the nerve growth factor and the brain-derived neurotropic factor, and this affects long-term potentiation. Some users report memories from long forgotten suddenly spring up. This could be good or bad depending on the memory, but reports say the memories are clear, and if they're unpleasant, there's an emotional detachment shielding from the unpleasant feelings. You should be able to experience the effects of Noopept soon after you take it. It's water-soluble and it enters your cells quickly, especially if you take it sublingually. A word of caution, don't go over the recommended 10 to 30 milligrams per dose. This could be dosed 3 times per day. You won't experience any added benefits, and it could bring unwanted side effects. There's some debate on the water solubility of Noopept. It's not truly fat soluble, but it certainly doesn't hurt to use a quality fat when taking your Noopept. A study published by the Russian Academy of Medical Sciences in Moscow showed that Noopept stimulates nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotropic factor. In the study, the researchers studied the effect of a single and long-term treatment, 28 days, of Noopept. They found that one-time treatment boosted mRNA in the cerebral cortex of the rats. mRNA is a molecule in the brain cells, and it carries codes from DNA, where they specify the amino acid sequence of the protein. And the long-term treatment of the Noopept increased brain-derived neurotropic factor. The researchers speculated that this sequence of events in the brain plays a role in the restoration of neurons. Improving neurotropin synthesis in the hippocampus boosts cognitive function, particularly consolidation and delayed memory retrieval. The research team concluded that Noopept holds much promise to prevent the development of Alzheimer's disease in patients with mild cognitive impairment. Researchers in Moscow studied the effects of injecting Noopept in rats to see how it could affect the brainwaves. The team found the Noopept increased alpha and beta brainwave activity throughout the brain. You experience alpha waves when you become more relaxed. Alpha waves are associated with superlearning, flow states of joy. Beta waves are associated with concentration, alertness, and cognition. The researchers observed that the Nmda receptor was involved with a single injection of Noopept, while Ampa receptors were activated after long-term use of Noopept. Nmda receptors are associated with long-term potentiation, or long-term memory, and neuroplasticity. Ampa receptors are associated with increased brain signaling activity, boosting cognition and memory. Noopept is known within the nootropic community for enhancing memory, and dozens of studies support this claim for better memory. One study done at the Russian Academy of Medical Sciences in Moscow experimented with Noopept on rats. The animals were trained in passive avoidance response. The animal's ability to both form a memory and to retain a memory was impaired. But once the rats received a dose of Noopept, they were able to retain a memory and to retrieve that for later use. In other words, Noopept normalized the learning capacity in animals with damage done to their cerebral cortex, and it promoted training ability in the rats with hereditary learning deficit. The researchers noted that Noopept improves all 3 stages of memory, and it was the most pronounced in those with impaired memory function. Another study, again done with rats, noted that Noopept stimulated learning after just a single administration, and repeated administration actually increased the number of successful learners among the animals who failed the initial training. The recommended dose of Noopept is 10 to 30 milligrams, once to 3 times per day. Noopept is very bioavailable and it easily crosses the blood-brain barrier. For even quicker absorption, you can use Noopept sublingually, for example, dissolved in DMSO. Let this dissolve under the tongue so it can go straight into the bloodstream and into your brain, bypassing the digestive system completely. Side effects are rare, but they can include fatigue, headaches, insomnia, or an upset stomach. Side effects are often a result of an unusually high dose of the nootropic. Headaches from using Noopept typically only happen when you forget to combine it with a good choline supplement. Headaches are often a symptom of a choline deficit in the brain. Many users stack the Noopept with paracetam and with choline. Then they can enhance its effects further by taking lion's mane mushroom for the added brain-derived neurotropic factor, and take the choline with uridine and omega-3, which has been shown to improve the growth of synaptic connections in the brain. For more information about herbs, supplements, and natural treatment plans, check out my website.